Whatever. Alright. Hi guys. What's going on? It is Scarlet, and I'm here with my team breakdown. Oh my god, I have to lower this on my end. Oh my god. I'm here with my team breakdown, and lols, oh my god. So I guess a few ground rules before I begin. Some inspiration was definitely taken from Breads from watching him do his, because I never really thought about how educational we could be with our draft leagues and kind of the way we approach them. Everyone's different with their playstyles and everyone's different from how they play, so I think it's important to kind of shed light on how all of us play and how our draft reflects that and how we determine if our draft is good or not. And I just kind of think that's kind of something I want to incorporate with this. Another thing is definitely the point system. I don't list how many points each mon is, but I guess some general rules are 25 points for 3 Terra Captains under 14 points. It could be like 2 that are like 12, 13 or something like that, but that's that rule. And then I believe the other important one is like, that's really it. I mean, like, standard Smogon rules, I think baton pass, but you can't wish pass, you can't sub pass, you can't intentionally pass stats. So like if you pass a speed boost or you pass a sword stance, shit like that. But if you unintentionally pass the stat, or I believe if you pass like a negative stat, like accidentally, so like you get sticky webbed and then you pass the sticky web unintentionally, that's fine. Or you get intimidated and you baton, I'm pretty sure all that's fine. But baton pass is legal, it's just momentum. So with all of that underway, I guess it's time for me to begin. I'm just gonna jump straight into it. I don't want to kind of like go on tangents. I know this video is gonna go on tangents. It's gonna be probably 30 minutes plus. I was thinking about doing like a 2-minute, actually I will do a 2-minute timer for each thing, just that it's like roughly about that long, if that makes sense. So I'm just setting it right now. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna set a stopwatch because it's currently like 2 in the morning. But let's just start. So first pick, Garchomp. So it was kind of the best available option on the board. Also, my important things I listed to the right. Actually, okay, I'm gonna stop it and I'm just gonna go over that. So important things that I like to personally draft, or that I prioritize, are 2 cores. If you asked me before, in Gen 8, the 2 cores would be different, and how they're structured would be different, but the premise is kind of the same. So the first important core, especially for, I guess online leagues, but really now it's any league, because online is past the 20-minute timer, at least most leagues are. And that's a Fighting Dark Psychic core. It's probably the best offensive core in the game. Pair that with a lot of good fighting, a lot of good dark, and a lot of good psychic types that are offensive this generation. It's one of the best cores to have. In my opinion, it is the best core, and it should be the one prioritized the most, though Fire, Water, Grass is kind of like the standard, and I feel like you kind of also need that. My thing with the Fire, Water, Grass core is I like a fire, a defensive water, offensive water, and a grass type. The fire can be offensive, though I kind of like defensive fire types more, and the grass type should usually be defensive, though something like Meowscarada could work, or something like Zarina could work, because it has a lot more utility and it has more defense, so it's kind of, it varies. Next, I like rocks, I like spikes, and I like rapid spin. Jesus Christ. So I like those. Defog I do like, but there's a massive defog nerf last gen, I believe, and then there was another one this gen. I could be wrong, but I know for sure there was one this gen, and that kind of just... And then there was a massive spin nerf, which even worse. So I like having at least one of each, though. If I had to prefer one over the other, I'd say rapid spin, just because a lot more utility on it. There's a lot more things you can do with it. You're also, you know, getting rid of your own hazards. So I like spin. Next. Oh, in rocks and spikes, there should usually be like at least one spiker and then at least 2 rocks. It's usually my preference. Next. 1-2 punch. What does this mean? It means having your first mon be not really this like offensive superstar, but having a really good one option and having a number 2 option that is maybe a little less good, just as good, or maybe even a little better, and having that kind of like just support the other mon and just have it be like one mon covering for the other mon. Like guard shot, for example, ice type weakness, dragon type weakness, fairy type weakness. So you want to get your second mon to cover those weaknesses and be able to deal with those weaknesses. So that's what 1-2 punch means. It also just means like 2 really good offensive mons that can kind of just hit hard, if you want to think about it like that. And also a 1-2 punch as in 2 wall breakers, one physical, 1 special. There's a lot of meanings with that, I'm sorry. I'm trying to go as quick as possible. Defensive Terra, and like I said before, this draft league, you have obviously 3 Terras, so I want 1 defensive, I want 1 offensive Terra breaker, and then I would kind of want 1 in the middle. But that one didn't really work out, so I didn't really want to mention that. Clerics, I think clerics are important. I think definitely like having something like Living Therapy is nice. I also think having something like Wish Support is also very nice. Just being able to like kill things and do all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, you could also put like utility under clerics as well, which incorporates things like rapid spin. It also incorporates things like status conditions, aka Will-O-Wisp, aka Thunderwave, aka Hypnosis. Well, I mean Spore really, which is like just better Hypnosis. And yeah, and then speed tiers, which is what those 110, 100. I like having 1 mon at least at each speed tier. So that could be like somewhere between 110, 115, and 100 between 109, and 90 between 99, etc. And then having, I didn't mention it, but also a 59 to 50, and then a 50 below, and then 110 and above. So those are those speed tiers. That's generally what I prefer. I like having 1 mon at each, and I like them being at least somewhat spread out. And then lastly, momentum. Being able to U-turn, volt switch, flip turn, baton pass, that kind of momentum, and also have mons that have the ability to gain momentum. So for example, maybe you have a more, like Umbreon is a great example of this. Umbreon is a mon that's commonly referred to as setup fodder, and I guess less experienced player may think of Umbreon as kind of like, oh, you could just set up on it and you just kill it. I mean, that's how you deal with Umbreon. But a more experienced player, as I like to think of myself, I'm trying very hard not to be self-absorbed right now. But another draft league player like myself might think of Umbreon as, yes, setup fodder, but if you can navigate correctly, aka, you know, making a huge double and doing stuff like that, that's also another way to commonly gain momentum. So that's all the important things I'm looking for in my drafts. Obviously this changes, especially with Terra, because of kind of, you know, what happens, and usually these things are ironed out, at least the, I want to say like definitely hazards, clerics, and usually like the Terra, those are usually ironed out by the first 3 picks. Like, I definitely was not thinking of, you know, the hazards as much, and I definitely wasn't. That's really it. I mean, it was really the hazards and the terras were what I really like. Once I got to pick 4 is when I really started thinking about that and really starting to build the rest of the team around my first 3 picks. So, that all being said, let's get into this. I'm sorry that took so long, but it was kind of important that I explain everything and we get to it. So, with my first overall pick, I start the timer. We have Garchomp. Pick number 5, it was on the board, I might as well take it. I think it's one of the best, really, like, Gloomons. It was only 17 points out of, I believe, 20 was the max. So, pretty good value for a tier 1, which is arguably one of the best mons in the metagame. It's still Garchomp, it got spikes, it has Stealth Rocks, it's, you know, 130 base attack, 108 speed, good defenses, can go special. Just a really good mon that kind of pairs well with anything I can go for, right? It's a very just mon I can just build around completely and have that core of whoever I go next can pair pretty well with Garchomp. So I have a ton of flexibility with my next pick. And I should also mention that pick 5 is the middle pick. I believe I was pick 5. I was either pick 5 or pick 6. Honestly, I forget. I think it was pick 6. So all of these picks should be adjusted by +1 and -1. You'll see what I mean later. I'm so tired. It's 1:55. Give me a break. But yeah, Garchomp can do a lot of things. Helmet sets, it has Rough Skin and Stability. Dragon Ground's a pretty good offensive and defensive type, which is nice. Did I say Rough Skin's a good ability? A lot of coverage, just a really solid mon. And with my next pick, I was kind of just looking at the board, seeing, you know, who the next best available mon is. Not only that, but pairs pretty well with Garchomp. Because if you have 2, you know, not as synergized mons, they're not going to perform well. So, only a minute 48, that's impressive. So with my next pick, I, you know, looked at the board, saw what was up, and I decided to go with Goldango. Start the timer. Goldango is a very, very good mod. As you can see, I kind of have a Fairy Dragon Steel core going, which is very common. Another common core. I personally have grown against this core as Generation 9 has slowly gone on. And I know we're still in the infant stages, but probably with DLC this will change. But right now, not a lot of good fairies, so I don't really see value in this core. So you're not really going to see me pursue this, and because of Terra, and because of Open Terra, I should mention, this is Open Terra. The fairy spot could really be anybody on this team, or at least my 3 Terra captains. It could be any of those 3. So I'm not feeling as restricted. I don't feel like I have to go for that fairy, which is nice with Goldango, because I don't really know how well that pairs with fairy. Anyways, moving on. Great special attacker, so Garchomp, like I mentioned, 130 base attack. Goldango has 133 base special attack. Make It Rain is a steel type move, 120 base power, can't miss, and only lowers the special attack by 1. Great move. Shadow Ball spam is prevalent. 84 base speed is nice. Garchomp's 108. So speed tiers are already forming pretty well. This thing gets status, which, like Thunder Wave, nice. Gets recovery with Recover, though Recover is obviously nerfed to 8 PP, but it's still really good as an option. Nasty Claw's a really good set. Gets pretty good coverage with Thunderbolt. And yeah, I mean, you can really run a ton of sets. Has pretty solid defenses. And I think that's pretty much it. So, we have the makings of a good team. I'm going to stop the timer. We have the makings of a pretty good team. Just because speed tiers are looking pretty good, and I should probably mention. Actually, I'll mention it after this pick. But yeah, we have a good core, and with my next pick, my round 3 pick, which is I guess adjusted, it is pick. This was pick 11, so I think it's like pick 18. I want to say, or pick 20. I don't know. I thought I had the 5th pick for some reason, but what am I gonna do? With this next pick, I was kind of looking again, seeing what paired well, because that's what I was going for, obviously. That's where I usually like to go with my pick 3, is kind of like eliminating all resistances and weaknesses of my other 2, and kind of getting everything resisted, or getting all the weaknesses resistant at least. So that's usually where I like to go with my 3rd pick. I say usually because as we start the timer again, I saw that Chiyu was still on the board. I don't understand how this mon was still on the board, all things considered. If you don't know, Chiyu, with its ability, Beats of Ruin, I believe has like 196 special attack. Some crazy number like that. I don't think it's 196, but it's a huge number. Anything above like 170, 180, plus the ability to hold the item is so insane in this metagame. Just such a prevalent special attacker, and I honestly do think it pairs well with my other mons. It also starts a Fighting Dark Psychic Core, and it gives me another playstyle to kind of go through. I could have Garchomp as a win con, I could have Gholdengo as a win con, or I could have Chiyu as my win con. So I have those 3 win cons already set up, and, you know, they could be 3 win cons. Like, for a game, they could be 3 win cons, which is insane. Chiyu has a ton of flexibility on this team. Obviously, Spec Scarf and Boots are the popular 3 sets, but I think there's a lot more potential with Chiyu. I started, you know, exploring this one in other leagues, and it could be a menace. It could definitely be a menace. So I'm very excited about that. Base 100 speed, so it's right in the middle of the previous 2. And yeah, Fire type is starting that core, which is great. Dark is also starting the other core, which is great. And yeah, I mean this is kind of the 1-2 punch with Gholdengo and Garchomp. So it's kind of like a 1-2-3 punch, which wasn't what I was going to go for, but I mean, like, it's there. So let's take a moment. Chiyu is really nice for this team. And one thing that I do regret about this draft, and I guess I'll kind of spoil it right now, just because I'm gonna talk about it in the end, but I might as well talk about it now. I'm not gonna get as many hazards as you might think, which is kind of a bummer because Chiyu is really reliant on some kind of hazard being out, so that you're just doing a ton of damage. You're threatening switch-ins. That's where Chiyu shines. So it's really unfortunate for me to only really have Garchomp as my main hazard mon, which kind of sucks because it kind of limits it a little bit. But I think I can navigate through it, and if not, one of the mons that you will see is on my kind of chopping block already, and yeah. So now I kind of layered or structured it this way, just because the first 3 picks are the mons I'm building around. Then the next 2 kind of support, the next 2 support that, or make a core or something, and the last 2 like support. You kind of get what I mean, right? The 2 are kind of linked to each other, and they support. That's kind of why I structured it like that, and the top 3 are the top 3 that I'm building around. Hope that made sense. Okay. So, with my next pick, pick 4, I kind of started to reach a little bit with my next 2 picks to be specific, just because I wanted to kind of get the mons that I thought really supported this team. And the first mon that kind of goes through that mantra is Slowbro. Slowbro has had a lot of nerfs this generation. It has lost Teleport, while Slowking kind of still has it with Chilly Reception, where it can switch out and start Hail. Slowbro didn't get that, so Slowbro doesn't have that. It still has everything, it's just like been nerfed through like subtle nerfs to everything else. For example, Recover got nerfed from 16 to 8 PP, and then obviously the loss of Teleport, also loss of Scald. So Slowbro's kind of like in this weird spot. But I like it because it kind of fills in a lot of holes on this team. You look at Garchomp, who's Ice Weak, and this is a pretty solid switch-in. I mean, Goldengo's already a good switch-in, but this is a better switch-in in my opinion. It's just kind of built better than Goldengo for a job like that, and it gives me a lot more flexibility with other mons like Goldengo. It's also starting that fire, or not, it's actually starting, or keeping up with 2 cores. That is the Fighting Dark Psychic and Fire 2 Water Grass core. This is a more defensive water type, which, I mean, it can go specs, it can go like Assault Vest, max special attack, it can do stuff like that, but generally this is going to be my water tank, and it supports Chi pretty well, and it, again, starts those 2 cores, or at least progresses those 2 cores. It's a slow mon, I believe base 30 speed, and that's kinda it with it. It just fills a lot of holes with this team, and I personally really like it as an option. So that's Slowbro. Yeah, when you get to like kind of this pick 4, pick 5, pick 6 is where you're gonna see a lot of I guess not snipe. I mean, you'll see snipes, but you'll see picking up where a mon maybe isn't valued at pick 4 or pick 5, but because you know you're probably not gonna get it when it comes back to you, you're gonna pick that mon. Slowbro fell victim to this, and my next mon, great transition. Flamigo, also those Terra symbols, that is not the Terra type it terrestrializes into. Terrestrialize any. I'm just noting that those are my Terra mons. Perfect. Okay, next mon pairs very well in this Psychic, Fighting Dark Psychic core, and the last mon to fulfill it is Flamigo. Flamigo, I really have wanted to try Flamigo, so that's mainly why I picked it. But besides from that, it also fills the physical part of that core. Since Dark and Psychic are a lot more special oriented, and this is the more physical typing of it, so it fills that already, which is, you know, perfect. It being a Terra Captain, I mainly like it just because it's gonna make it stronger. I don't necessarily have to, you know, go like a Terra Electric or Terra Ground. I can remain Terra Fighting and Terra Flying and just get massive damage. So I enjoy that part of Flamigo a lot more. I think it's a mon I'll very much like. I like Chiyu because I compare it to Kartana as it being a special Kartana. And I think Flamigo can be something like Kartana-esque just because high attack stat, maybe not the best speed stat, but it can be kind of like a sweeper as well. So I kind of like Flamigo and where it could, you know, be and what it could do. And it obviously fulfills the offensive Terra Breaker because nobody wants fighting. Flying is such a hard. It's like Earthquake, Stone Edge. Very hard to kind of get a switch in as well as that, as well as a Volt Beam, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt. Very hard to find switch-ins, so it kind of fills that, and it gets stab on both. It's just a really good offensive type. I kind of reached for a little bit, but I really want to try it out, and yeah. So those 2 picks I think support a lot, just because it kind of lays off pressure from the other mons. I kind of allude to that with Slowbro and Goldengo, but Flamigo, what Flamigo can do is it allows Garchomp to go a more defensive route. It allows it to kind of like, you know, stay in that role. It doesn't. It kind of supports defensive Garchomp coming on, but because of Slowbro, it's also allowed to go offensive Garchomp. It's not restricted to just, you know, Stealth Rock, Spikes, Dragon Tail. It could be just like Stealth Rocks and then just 3 attacks. You know, it can run something like that. So I kind of like having Flamigo there to just kind of like support on the offensive side, as well as be like a massive wall breaker, to where, you know, an offensive Garchomp set would be liked, but, you know, Rock Spikes need to become to that matchup, and Flamigo can kind of, I think you get what I mean. So I like with those 2. Next pick, I was very excited to make this pick because it's a mon I've very much enjoyed playing with. I've only played like 4 games with it, but it's insane, especially in an open Terra metagame where you can get rid of 4-time weaknesses. I think that kind of alludes a little to where I was going with this pick, but I like that, and I like being able to kind of like choose your own typing, and it fits that well. Also, Flamico is base 90 speed, so it's like in the middle of Chiyu and Goldango, which is really nice. But yeah, next pick is a meme mon, or a memeable mon, but I don't think it was going to be available at my next pick, so I felt like I had to kind of make this pick. And to kind of round out the core 6, I think it's a really good addition. It also completes my Fire, Water, Grass core. So that is both of my cores almost done. I just need that one more water, the offensive water type, which is actually my last pick, spoilers. So both cores are pretty much done for the most part. And now it's after this pick, and now it's just a matter of filling out other roles and filling out other niches with this team. So, with all that being said, my next pick was the Wo Chen. Wo Chen. I want to put Wo Shiesty. Unfortunately, would not have fitted. But Wo Chen is one of my favorite mons this generation. Just such a funny design. But it also has such a really good ability that if it had a better typing, it could probably take advantage of. Grass Dark is not really... It's a solid special defensive typing, but it's not the greatest. And I think if it had a better typing, then it could take advantage of that. I think you see where I'm going with this. With Terra, it is allowed to kind of become whatever typing it wants. Has a, I think, decent defense and a really good SPDF really good SPDF with an ability that lowers defense. So you could kind of play around with it. You could go max defense, you could go max SPDF. It also has a very usable special attack, I believe of like 95 or 90 or so. So that's really good for a wall. Gets a ton of shit like Leech Seed, gets Ruination, which is, you know, does 50% pretty much. It's like a Nature's Madness or Super Claw. So I really like that. Like I said before, defensive Terra, I believe this is like 65 speed or 50. I think it's 65 speed, which is like really fast for a fucking snail. But yeah, I mean, defensive Terra, it kind of does have some Cleric options, or like utility options, which I, you know, very much enjoy. Obviously, the last grass type. And I don't really mind it, you know, sharing the same type as Chiyu, because I think they're very different mons. Obviously, if this is like, you know, a Hydreigon, or if it's a even Iron Jugulus, I think I probably wouldn't have made the pick, just because Chiyu just does what it does better. But I think Wo-Chen's very distinct from Chiyu, and I think they have two distinct roles that I don't really think the typing matters. So that was Wo-Chen. And since I'm kind of already going this defensive route, I figured I might as well keep it up, as you might say. And I decided to go with Blissey. Now, in hindsight, I am kind of regretting this pick a little bit. I think Blissey's very weird of a mon. Obviously high defense, or high SPDF, high HP, and that's kind of what it's known for. I think with Terra, it definitely adds a unique perspective, just because you can obviously another defensive Terramon, where, you know, you could change into a fairy type. You could be that defensive fairy type that this team lacks. Or you could be something like a, you know, I don't know, like a ghost type to not get hit by a CC, or to block Rapid Spin. So I think there's different options to go with Blissey, and I think that kind of like makes Blissey a very unique mon. At the same time, Blissey has a ton of limitations. Loss, Teleport, obviously has Recovery nerf, and it became a lot more of a passive wall, which is kind of like Umbreon, but I think this is a way worse degree. Your really only attacking move is Seismic Toss. It's just a very limiting mon. It does get Stealth Rock, so that's what I was talking about with Hazards. I now have 2 Rockers, which is nice, but Blissey's kind of just... It's a weird mon. just in general. So I still don't know how I feel about this pick, and I might end up switching the Terra Captains of it just because I'm not sure where I want to go. And if it, performs badly, obviously, then we'll obviously reconsider where it belongs on this team. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with Blissey. I do like how it fits. I like how many roles can fill. I think it pairs at least okay with Goldango because, my 2nd, 4th, 6th, and 7th pick kind of like form this stall core. Even Garchomp and Chiyu, kind of like a stall core where very defensive, very methodical games, which I kind of don't like. I really do enjoy bulky offense. So for that reason, I might obviously try and trade Blissey. But it does give me another playstyle to kind of like go with, which is nice. So it fulfills Cleric obligation, then it's a defensive Terra, but I kind of would have rather had a more like specially offensive Terra defensive. So that's my thoughts on Blissey on this team and where I got it. So yeah. 7 picks in. This is definitely an interesting team so far. At this point, my 7th pick was actually going to be Iron Bundle. Unfortunately, it got picked before me. So I was kind of like hyping myself up in the Discord, and I was like, "You guys aren't ready for this team. You guys aren't prepared." Literally, as soon as I say that Iron Bundle gets taken, and I'm like, "Fuck," because imagine, like, that literally fulfills so much for me. That's 2 waters. Ice type is a very offensive typing. I kind of have, like, this insane offensive core. It was just such... It was right there. It's fast speed tier. It's such a great option, but unfortunately it got picked. And at this point I was kind of like, fuck, I really need a ground immunity at this point because, Goldango and Chiyu are obviously ground weak. I'm also looking at my team and I'm like, fuck, I need defog. I need a defogger because I have no hazard removal, right? This isn't just like, oh, I need rapid spin. There's a ton of rapid spinners off the board. If I want a rapid spinner, I have to dig deep for a rapid spinner, which is obvious. I'm obviously going to end up doing that, but I want to do that later. So right now I'm looking at defensive. I want a fast defensive mon that can kind of play a ton of roles. And what better mon than Talonflame? Talonflame. Talonflame is 126 base speed, has decent attack, but if you can, because of its high speed, you're allowed to go high defenses. Has Flame Body, which is kind of like a Will-O-Wisp, a contact Will-O-Wisp, where if you hit them on, then you have a 30% chance of getting burned. So I guess it's kind of not like a contact Will-O-Wisp, but the point is, you might be burned if you touch the bird. So I like that. It's kind of like a nice physical wall. High speed tier means it can kind of have cleanup duties as well, like S-stands and all that fun stuff. So I like Talonflame. I like what it can provide for this team. I have to bring up the fire types, just because I know people are kind of weird about that, as well as the flying type, honestly. And again, I think this is a similar case with, who did I say before? I said somebody before. I said Wochen. I think this is a similar case where the fire type is really, this is a more physical offensive fire. So I think they're obviously distinct roles there, and I think this is a more defensive pick, and this is a more like sweeper pick, which I know Flamigo can kind of do, and I know Chiyu can definitely do. But it provides much more than just like offensive capabilities. These are more defensive capabilities for Talonflame, so that's why that's there. And Talonflame gets defog. It gets momentum with U-turn. Flamigo, I should have also mentioned, gets U-turn. So that's 2 momentum mons that can kind of like fill that need a little bit more, which is obviously nice. And yeah, like I said before, 126 base speed is the fastest mon on this team, and that's pretty good all things considered, especially with, I believe there might be a team with webs, so having a mon that's first off lifted from the ground and second off fog those away is just really nice. So I like Talonflame, and I like this pick. Next up, I know I just talked about Rapid Spin and waiting until the draft, but at this point, I'm starting to see some Rapid Spinners go, right? I'm starting to see Tsarina go. I'm starting to see... I mean, Tsarina wasn't a mon I was thinking of, but I'm starting to see mons like Donphan go, and I'm starting to see those known Rapid Spinners just kind of leave the board. And I'm kind of worrying a little bit. I'm just a tiny bit. So I decided to go Komala. Komala I have not used. And I'm excited to use it because I think Komala has a lot of potential. I was heavily considering this to be a Terra Captain just because I think there's so much you could do with it. And I'm not going to reveal that. It's a normal type which kind of conflicts with Blissey, but again, very different roles. Komala's kind of like first off, it's a physical attacker, so you already got that. Second off, it can go defensive. It could also do things like bulk up, which is kind of nice. It also has distinct utility options, where I believe this gets Yawn and Rapid Spin. Rapid Spin being the big one. And I believe this is a like 45-55 speed tier, which I kind of already have, but it's nice to like have a little bit more of a bridge. I could be wrong. I don't have the stats in front of me, and I didn't really you know, check them before recording this. I just want to get this recorded. So yeah, Komala, just solid option, and you know, gives me that spinner I was really looking for, and a decent speed tier. And it gets, I'm pretty sure it gets huge. I could be wrong, but I think it gets huge. So that's the pick. Moving on to pick number 10. At this point, I'm looking at my team, and I don't really see a huge gap between Talon and Chomp, but I see a big enough gap where I'm starting to be like, if a 125 or a 124 mon comes, would it run Modest? You know, would it run Adamant where it doesn't need to run speed? So I decide to kind of make a judgment call and pick up an electric type. If you don't know, electric types are kind of known for being fast. They're known for being sweepers. They're known for, you know, getting some damage on the board. And obviously that's where I'm headed with this pick. You know, I said it. But it was kind of a weird call to make just because I didn't really know where to go. There's not a lot on the board. I believe I had like 8 points left. So I could have went with like kind of like just a fast special attack, like a Jolteon. Jolteon I think was 6 points, but I didn't think it fit the team very well. So I decided against it, and I want to get him on between those two ranges. So I decided to go with Raichu. And like I said before, very interesting mon, and a very interesting spot. I believe it's 110 or it's 115. I think it's 110 though. Maybe it's 105. I think it's 110. Raichu is a very interesting mon. I believe it lost knockoff, but it has utility options still. It has Wish, which is very interesting. I think Komala might have Wish too. But it's very interesting that Raichu has Wish, just in general, to be honest. It's a fast electric type. It has decent coverage. I believe it gets Grass Knot, but I know it gets Surf, gets Thunderbolt. It's just interesting. It's just an interesting one. It gets not utility. I mean, it does get utility. It gets momentum with Volt Switch, and it's a fast mon, and it helps the team out with that. And again, alleviates some stress from a mon like Chiyu and a mon like Garchomp, and definitely a mon like Flamingo, because it kind of allows them to do what they're good at. Raichu can kind of like clean later, so it allows for like, you know, bulk up sets or Swords Dance or Nasty Plots or any of that sort, or like even agility sets. Like, Raichu can allow that alleviation. It's also a mon you kind of have to prep for. You have to have the speed tier for it, because if you don't, Raichu can kind of just blow you away with the specs attack. It could also just run Choice Scarf just to like outspeed something and just get a ton of damage off on it. I like Raichu overall. Gives me another special attacker. I really felt like I was lacking special attackers. I know that's hard to say with Chi-Yu and Goldango on the same team, but you know, I felt like Garchomp was already on the team. I felt like Flamigo was there. I felt like Talonflame and Komala. I felt like this team was kind of missing another special attacker, and I know Komala and Talonflame are the most notable physical attackers, but to me they feel like mons where you can kind of set up on the physical side, and to me that means you're a physical mon. So yeah, I mean, you primarily use physical moves, I should specify, with a usable physical attack. I'm sorry, I gotta like, yeah. So that's Raichu, very, very solid, and this team is looking pretty much complete. But you might have remembered what I said before, and you might be looking at the important things. 2 water types, 1 offensive and 1 defensive. I already have the defensive, so the bigger reason why I didn't select a 8-point mon or whatever point cost was for an electric type, I think I might have had 11 points honestly, is I wanted the special water type, or I wanted a physical water type that could kind of just come when the matchup looks good, especially since Slowbro obviously can go special, but you really want to be in that physical wall, and you want it doing that. So having a mon that again relieves stress, where it doesn't have to play 2 roles at once, is really good, and it forces prep. And that last mon, I should like, you know, break the tension or whatever, is Clawitzer. I fucking love Clawitzer. If we're talking about Terra options again, this was one I was heavily considering. It was literally, it was between Blissey, Komala, and this, and I decided to go Blissey. This was my second option. I know I was talking like Komala could have been that, but this has a ton more going for it. Terra Blast is insane. I don't know if it gets pulse boosted. I don't think it does, but I could be wrong on that. But I know it gets boosted from Dragon Pulse. I know it gets boosted from Dark Pulse and Aura Sphere. Imagine if you can Terra into those types and get the stab bonus for it. That's crazy. You know, having a busted, and I mean busted, 127.5 dragon type special move is crazy. With stab is crazy. So I really like Clawitzer. It helps with that, again, Fire, Water, Grass core. I also like its speed here. I know its speed is like pretty slow. I think it's like 60 again. A lot of slow mons, and honestly Tricker might be a viable strategy for this team. Just looking at it. But I do like it. It also gives me some slow momentum. I believe this still has at least U-turn or flip turn. So it gives me a slow momentum user. And it's one of my favorite mons so far of this generation. Again, it's another mon similar to Wochun, where I've only used it for a few games, but it's a versatile mon. It has pretty solid, pretty okay defenses, but you can also run this defensively. So I think Clawitzer kind of being slept on, and I'm kind of excited to run this mon. And yeah, I think that kind of wraps things up. I just want to go over my final thoughts for this team. I thought I'd kind of wrap it up that way, kind of go over some things that I think I could have improved on, some things that I think I did well, some things I think I did bad, and all that. So, first things first, mixed bag of tricks. Also, you could probably click off now, you kind of see all the things, but if you want to hear my thoughts, I go much more in depth with this, then I say stick around, but really up to you. So first things first, this is a mixed bag of tricks. I obviously have a lot of good going for myself. I mean, if you have Garchomp, Goldango, Chi-Yu, you kind of already have a lot of good going for you. So that's kind of already good, but I also kind of have some weird aspects to this team. The biggest one that stands out, oh my god, the biggest one that stands out to me is Blissey, especially Terra Blissey. It can be a good mon in the right system. I don't know if that's this system, and I feel like it might cost a game just because I Terra with it instead of Wo-Chen, or I Terra with it instead of Flamingo, or I don't Terra it because I'm unsure of what it could do. Oh my god, I'm sorry. So I think Blissey's already kind of like adding to this mixed bag of tricks where I'm like, I don't know what it will do, and that's kind of scary. But I also think there's other things that make this team weird, and that's the lack of removal options. I think Talonflame is a great defogger. I don't think Kamala's the best rapid spinner. I think it's a good rapid spinner. I was kind of gassing it up a bit, but it's definitely not the best rapid spinner. I think if you don't prep for it, I think it's kind of, that's on you, and Kamala can really take advantage of that. But that doesn't mean it's great. It doesn't mean that it can, take advantage if you switch into it, or, you make a wrong read and stuff like that. So those two combined really kind of make this team weird. Put on top of that, this team is full of a ton of breakers and a couple of sweeper options with Raichu, obviously, and Talonflame. It kind of makes this team a little weird, and I think that kind of can help it, but I also think it can harm it. Another big thing is the unfortunate snipes. And like I say, I can't really complain about them because, I got the team I pretty much wanted on paper, and getting something like Chiyu, you can't really complain, but I can mention that Iron Bundle was my 7th pick. I was really between it and Wo-Chen, and I figured Wo-Chen was not gonna last, and Iron Bundle was already 7 picks in, so I figured it's probably gonna be there for at least another round before someone's like, alright, I gotta pick this thing up. But unfortunately, that was the round where people picked it up. So, unfortunately, Bliss is just gonna have to be there. And I couldn't really think of a long-term solution, so that's kind of that. But I can't really complain. Again, like, Chiyu's there. But also, with that snipe, I was kind of able to be like, hey, Clawitzer is kind of on the board, and I'd kind of, like to take that mod. So, I can't really complain because I like Clawitzer better than Iron Blunder, as people like to call it. Terra Captains will likely shift. I've been mentioning this. Blissey has fraudulent things about it, especially it being a more passive tank. I don't know how much I like that. I kind of really wanted to use a special attacker just because I have my physical breaker, I have my just really defensive Terramon, so it doesn't really make sense for me to have 2 really defensive Terramon, so I'm probably gonna end up switching Blissey out for Clawitzer. I'll probably give it, I might switch it out this week just so that I can have it next week, but that's that. Also, this is coming out before week 1, so yeah, switch it out before week 1. Or I guess active for week 2, but you know what I mean. And like I said before, Blissey is a mon that might be swapped, not just as a Terra Captain, but just off the team. Rocks is definitely something important, and it's my only other rocker, but I think that ability can be found in other mons, and as well as that, I think there's some important types that I'm missing. For example, Fairy is one of the bigger ones, but I think that just like, even a rock type might be good for this team. I don't know, but like, that's just something that I'd like to add. I think my team is really good at the speed tiers. I think 126, 110, 108, 100, 90, 84, I think that's really solid, at least upper-wise. I think it kind of peters out in the middle, and I think it's kind of a little weird. But then again, 65 is very solid, and it kind of like just bridges the gap decent enough to where like 80 physical attackers kind of do run, adamant, but it's fine. It's fine for the most part, and I think I can kind of manage, and that's really the only complaint I have for speed tiers. Not as much hazards as I like. I think I mentioned this as well. Just Garchomp and Blissey being my only hazard setters, and Talonflame and Komala being my only hazard control is really not good. And that's definitely something I'm looking to change. I think Goldengo can definitely help, just because, you know, it's a Rapid Spin immune and it's Defog immune, so it can help leave the hazards up. But just being able to control the hazards and just being able to, you know, spin them away. I don't really have a mon that comes every week and threatens the Rapid Spin. Like, Komala is a very, like, fringe mon, so I don't know how much I like that, just because I don't know how much people are gonna prep for Komala. And I guess Talonflame by extension. I think I have one of the best offensive cores. I don't know if I did mention that. I don't think I did mention. I know I keep saying that, but I don't think I mentioned this. But from what I heard from the draft breakdown, 3 out of 4 coaches in this league picked a combination of Goldengo and Garchomp. As well as that, just from like looking at the Latios division as a whole, another coach, who I guess I can name, Gengar, also picked a combination of Garchomp, Goldengo, and a Ruination Mon. He chose he chose Chien-Pao. That was his first pick, and then he picked Garchomp, Goldengo. So I think that's really interesting to note, just because I think that he has one of the better offensive cores as well. So it's really interesting that we kind of went with the same direction unintentionally too. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cute, kind of cool to just shed light on. And I think I also have a solid defensive core. Garchomp, Goldengo, and Slowking and Wo-Chen as my defensive, and you know, fucking Talonflame. Really solid defensive mons. Obviously I didn't mention Blissey, but just because Blissey is kind of like in this weird spot right now, but just some really solid defensive mons that can kind of just not be setup fodder and just kind of like hit at least decently, and just do some tanky things, you know? And I think also to mention the offensive core, a lot of my, you know, like defensive mons have very offensive capabilities. I believe Slowbro still has 100 special attack. I believe Wo-Chen has 95 or 90 special attack. Talonflame obviously has priority Gale Wings as well, so it can use that instead. But it also gets Sword Stance. And Clawitzer, like I said before, 88 or so defenses with 80 HP-ish, or 85 HP, isn't terrible. Like, that is very solid, so that can run defensively as well as offensively, and it gives it bulk. So I think I just have a very solid defensive core. And then, like I mentioned before, poor removal. Just not the best 2 options. And overall great synergy. You have a lot of momentum, or not like a lot of momentum, but decent momentum to where switches can happen. For example, like I mentioned before, Blissey into somebody else, like Slowbro, kind of having that as like a defensive momentum play, or Blissey into like hard Garchomp or hard Chi, just because you're making a read. So I kind of, oh my god, why do I keep doing that? I keep like raising the volume, accidentally. I'm sorry, I did not have any water, so my throat is hella dry and it hurts so much. But, yeah. So great synergy just kind of means that Mon's like synergizing well. And I think I have great synergy, especially between Garchomp and Goldengo, but I also have great synergy just with Garchomp and a lot of my defensive Mons, as well as Chi and a lot of my defensive Mons. To where I can, you know, there's a ground type, I go hard Wo-Chen, or I go hard into Talonflame. If there's a rock, you know, if there's a rock. If I think Stone Edge is coming out, I think Goldengo's a pretty safe play. Just kind of like things like that. And I know Goldengo's kind of like my only rock business, but shh, don't tell anybody that. I guess you know, Garchomp. So those 3 really synergize well, and I think that, you know, obviously boosts this team a lot. because great synergy often leads to great play. So having that in tandem with everything else is pretty good. And I think that boosts this team overall. And based purely off of the other teams, so not factoring into play and not factoring any of that, I think I'm an 8 out of 10, which to me should be a top 6, top 8 team. Top 8 makes playoffs, so I think at bare minimum, my expectations are make playoffs. So hopefully we can get that done. There's 10 weeks, which is a pretty long season, which has the benefits of, you know, a lot more games, just a lot more games, meaning that, you know, some games just don't matter as much as others. Obviously games matter a ton and every game matters to an extent, but you can start off 0-2 or 0-3 and make a pretty big run and make playoffs. So yeah, that is kind of my thoughts. I think guys, if you watch all the way, because that, I know I wouldn't have, but no, seriously, just thank you guys so much. This has probably been one of the roughest times on this channel, or at least making draft content as a whole. I've obviously kept up as a player, but the content has been the hardest part just because I have finals pretty much or not finals, but I have exams and midterms every single week, and I just kind of get sucked into that instead of, you know, posting the content and making the thumbnails, which to me has been the most difficult part, even though it seems pretty easy to just kind of like copy and paste. It's just kind of what a lot of my things are, but it's kind of hard to just sit down and make that export video. It's just a lot of time, a lot of dead time it feels like, doing it, which has been the hardest part. So genuinely thank you guys for watching. We're kind of moving into the second phase of Gen 9 battling. I think up until around March, like I'd say midway through March was kind of the first phase where you're really testing things out, and I still am testing a lot of things out just because I was only in like five or so leagues at, like in the beginning as a whole. So now I'm really like, I know what things do. I've used Goldango, I've used Chiyu, and I've used Wochen before. So I think that really helps with my understanding of this team and how it works. Whereas, you know, if I drafted this team in the beginning, I probably wouldn't really know what things do. I wouldn't have that testing phase, but because I've seen Flamigo before, you get what I'm saying. I have the knowledge. Like, there's a lot more knowledge when it comes to it. And we've really entered the second phase of Scarlet and Violet battling. Not to mention, like, obviously, post-home dexes and pre-home and national decks and all that kind of shit. So we're definitely moving into more of the nat decks post-home phase. As a whole, just kind of like preparing for that and preparing for those leagues and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, bottom line, a lot's been going on, but I really appreciate it if you keep watching and if you enjoyed this, and genuinely if you enjoyed this. So that's gonna be it for me. That's really it. My throat is really killing me, so I'm gonna end it here, and yeah, thank you guys for watching. Peace. Oh my god, this is terrible. This is so bad. Like, look at the I'm sorry. See you guys later.